It's almost impossible to hear, but there's actually thunder and lightning happening in Southern California. Weird. Today, I meant to be at Disneyland. I was gonna go ride the Mark Twain, my favorite boat. I was gonna go ride the trains. They're all reopened now. Very excited about it. But then, of course, the thunder or lightning, and baby said, dance, dance, magic dance. Put that magic spell on me. Slap that baby, make 'em pay. So since that's out of the question, I'm just home. And since I'm home, I figured that it's a good time for it to sometimes blow, yeah! Nikki doesn't like it. It's a blow that happens sometimes. Hey, little bitty bit. They don't like when I sing. Something about the way I sing bothers these cats. I love to sing. Anyway, I'm gonna keep this short and sweet. I just realized I hadn't talked about the subject in a long time. And it was a subject worth mentioning. Somebody pointed out to me that just 2 days ago, possibly 3 by the time you see this, just a few days ago marked the 3rd anniversary of the first time that I ever went down to Disneyland at night and did a video about the quest for positivity. We are now over 1,000 days of the quest and 3 years of the quest for positivity. That is a pretty crazy, mind-blowing thing. Now, I know a lot of you have come on board in the past year or two. Maybe you haven't heard of the quest for positivity. You can always go backwards in my videos or Google the origins of the quest for positivity. It explains it a lot more. Basically, I went through a long, traumatic, horrible thing. I don't like to rehash it all over and over again, but if I have to explain what it is, I went through a crazy divorce. I was having to leave my house. I was having to leave my other cars behind. I was having to move out of the same house as my kid. You know, the whole custody and lawyers part was all ahead. I had no job because I had been a stay-at-home parent. I had no prospects, no idea what I was gonna do. All I had was making a few silly YouTube videos in my spare time. I had just quit my band. So in rapid succession, I lost my band, my house, my kid, my ex-wife, my whole universe my life got turned upside down, okay? So I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there and tell you just a little bit about how I became part of the quest for positivity. So I had heard somewhere, I think it was part of either some marriage counseling that we tried, failure, or whatever it was, where the quote was, you can't always control your circumstances. Actually, it was, you can't control your circumstances, but you can always control the way you react to them, which I disagree with. So my version of this quote is, you can't always control your circumstances, because sometimes you can, but you can almost always control the way that you react to them. And so I decided that even though I was terrified, I was full of anxiety, full of a lot of anger, and a lot of apathy at the same time, figured that one out. And I was confused. I was just completely lost. It's like I meet people who have lost their jobs. I meet people who are going through similar situations. Even at the horror convention the other day, I met someone who's like, dude, you know, I went through this terrible breakup. I had to move. I lost my job, all this stuff. You know, thanks for the Quest for Positivity videos. I realized that even though I was in that position, I had to take control of the one thing I could take control of, and that was my attitude. I had always been one of those people who was a victim of my circumstances, so if the circumstances were bad, whether I put myself in them or not, I let my attitude be full of anxiety, full of fear, full of stress, and I just let that rule me. There's all this stuff to be stressed out about. Ergo, I must be stressed out. I must be negative. I must be frustrated. This is the perfect time for that. And what I realized was, with the whole quest for positivity thing, is that I really needed to put some effort behind just keeping a positive mental attitude for several reasons, but the most obvious one is that I was in a bad circumstance, right? And many of you aren't in bad circumstances. Maybe you're just in a normal, boring circumstance. You're just in a rut, whatever it is. So this applies, but this still applies to everyone, which is that if you're going to be negative, you're going to be stressed out, if you're letting all that affect you, if you're letting yourself lash out and continue poisoning the water hole with the negativity, you're going to make decisions coming from a negative place. You're going to see the world in a negative way. It's a confirmation bias thing, right? If you're negative, you're going to be looking out there and finding all the things that prove that you're right, that everything is negative. It's really hard to do because it sounds so simplistic, and it's not as easy as it sounds to actually put yourself through the effort to train your brain to think a different way. Not to just think positively, like everything's rainbow and fluffy butterflies, because the first step of the quest for positivity is realizing, like, this sucks, this situation is entirely hopeless, it's completely bad, it's no good, you know, people close to me are negative, or my situation is negative, my job is negative, whatever it is super negative, this completely sucks. But what's step two? Step two is trying to find the good in the situation, and if there is no good in the situation, because there's not always a silver lining, if there is no good in the situation, it's to try to preserve a little hope for the future. The first step of doing that, I found, was to practice gratefulness. So, for example, I didn't feel very grateful to be alive. I didn't really feel like being alive at that time, but I really stopped and thought about it. I was like, well, at least I'm alive. I'm somewhat healthy. I have this Disneyland pass, just simple things. I can go to Disneyland. I've got my mom and my dad. They're super awesome. So I've got family behind me. At least I'm not going to starve right this minute. You know, you find the smallest thing to try to be grateful for, and you practice trying to find those things. Because at first you go, what are you grateful for today? You're like, I got my health and my family's here, or I don't have my health, but I've got a nice car, whatever it is. You have to kind of almost train yourself to see, you know, the blessings or the good, the positive things in your life. And then you start going backwards in your head through some other negative experiences that you've been through, or some of the bad things you've been through, and look at how they've turned out. Look at how they've turned out for the good, and you think, okay, maybe this won't be a complete disaster. For me, I was like, well, I'm staying with my parents for now. I don't have anything else going on. Maybe I can use this as a chance to do these YouTube videos for a little while or whatever. And look how everything has changed. In 3 years, my life has completely changed. I have a whole different job, a whole different life path that I never had before. There were a lot of friends that I loved, that were really close to me, that I miss, that I love to be around. But I realized that those people, for whatever reason, stressed me out. I had to kind of push back on a lot of the people I knew, to kind of leave space for new opportunities, new people to come in. I made some of the best friends I've ever had in my entire life in the last 3 years as a result. So what I'm trying to get at is basically, it's not always the end of the world, especially if you take control somewhat of your attitude and just be positive. It sounds simple, it sounds stupid. I've had some people totally ruthlessly mock me for this, but I swear it completely saved my life and changed my life for the good. Of course, I wasn't alone in the quest for positivity. Me personally, I've had people come up and be like, thank you for the quest for positivity. It saved my life. I put some of that stuff into practice. I've gone on and on about this in other videos. So you can go backwards and find them. If you're going through a hard time, go back and look up some of those videos. But I, of course, wasn't always alone, because I had a lot of you guys out there being positive, being supportive, leaving nice comments, sending weird stuff to me in the mail, meeting me out wherever I happen to be and giving me a hug, which that stuff was so great. I am eternally grateful for all that positive stuff. You see, you don't realize that leaving a positive comment on something can have a dramatically positive effect, right? There's haters and trolls out there who go around, all they do is leave negative comments, and then there's people do horrible things because they're in despair because they're getting bullied or whatever it is. So we understand that these can have negative consequences, but we never think about the positive, do we? Somebody puts a nice picture online and you say, wow, you know, that's a great picture. That can boost their entire day. Often people are struggling in a way that we never even stop to think about. Maybe that person over there that looks like they've got it all together is having a crazy struggle, is having the worst day of their life, and just saying something nice, or just giving them a hug, or just saying, hey, I really like your t-shirt, can make all the difference. So that's part of the quest for positivity too, is trying to put as much energy as you can into putting out positivity in the world, whether that's something creative like doing paintings, or I don't know, drawing smiley faces in whiteout on the little crosswalk guy, whatever it is, to put something positive out in the world. Just even if you're walking around giving people a smile, it can really make all the difference. I remember talking to someone, a friend of mine, who's having like this horrible, horrible day, And we were talking about how, it's a good thing in this world. It's a difficult thing to make even 5 people smile, much less 10. And I was trying to, practice the gratefulness. I think at the time I had maybe 400 subscribers or something on this channel. And I was saying, isn't it cool? I could make 300 or 400 people smile a day. That is so worthwhile. What a worthwhile goal to try to do that. And he was talking about how one day he was having like the worst day of his life, and all that happened, he's walking down the street feeling all negative, and a person walked by and just gave him a smile, and how it completely flipped his attitude all the way around. So you never know if holding the door open for someone, helping them carry something, doing something very simple can be the thing that completely turns their day around, and maybe that day is the day they turn their whole life around. So it's also about just trying to put as much positivity out there in the universe. Nobody's perfect. Everybody's gonna have grumpy days. I certainly had days where, and sometimes it's healthy to have those days where you're just like, I give up, everything's horrible. But the important part is to not let that bad day or that setback or that little slide back down the hill mess you up on your quest. The overall quest must continue. You got to get back up the next day and say, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep fighting. There's times now where I got medical bills. Allie had those medical procedures, and there's a fat stack of thousands of dollars of debt waiting for me to pay off. And there's all kind. I got back from that Route 66 trip, which went a lot longer than I thought. So a lot of stuff piled up on me, and I was just sitting there yesterday going like, what am I going to do? I need a George Bailey moment over here, that kind of thing. But then I realized, like, it's gonna be fine. And even if some of these things aren't going to be fine, not those things in particular, those will be fine. But even if there's things that come along that aren't going to be fine, being negative and losing my mind isn't going to help. You got to be positive. So it was crazy that somebody pointed out 3 years of the quest for positivity. I would really like to go back, if I ever have time, to all the videos on the subject of the quest for positivity and transcribe them into text and see if I could put them together in like a pamphlet form. I don't know if it'd be long enough for a book, like reorganize them and edit them a little bit. I'd put it out there just because when people ask me like, oh man, how did you stay positive with this or whatever, I would love to have it like, bam, here you go. It's all in one place instead of scattered through all those videos. But either way, can you believe it? 3 years of the quest for positivity. All I want to say is there are many other solutions, right? There's therapy, which is something I strongly, strongly endorse. That if you're having a lot of problems and you feel completely overwhelmed, having someone to talk to that's a professional with stress relieving techniques, or even if there's other mental issues going on, therapy can be a great thing, or counselors. Of course, people have their faith. That's always a good thing. Your family, good people to talk to is very important. If you're lonely, there's all kinds of people online. Online can be a scary, negative place. But the internet is also full of really kind, really amazing people who take time out of their day to talk to strangers about all kinds of things. So I can't remember where I was going with that, but there are lots of other things. But the point of all this is that after 3 years now, I can officially, I think, say the quest for positivity also works. It's also a good thing to add to those other things. If you got nothing, then there you go, quest for positivity. But if you have other things in your life, something to add to it, the quest for positivity. Just taking that little nugget, I believe that love is better than hate. Kindness is better than cruelty whenever possible. Forgiveness is better than revenge or bitterness. And really that you can control your reaction to circumstances around you. At first, that's very hard, right? At first, that's really hard. No one tells you that part. Well, you can control your reaction to anything. Yeah, if someone comes up and punches me in the face, I can control my reaction and not punch back or not scream. But it's very difficult to put a smile back on your face when something happens. So when life punches you, you actually can walk away and go, you know what? I'm going to be okay. And not take on all the stress, not take on all the fear, not take on all the worry. But it doesn't happen overnight. 3 years later, I'm still struggling with that sometimes. And what's funny is sometimes big, horrible things can happen to me, and I have the knowledge now and the exercise to go, and the experience to go, okay, this isn't going to crush me. But then some little thing will happen in traffic, and I'll lose my mind, So it's an ongoing process of trying to be positive, trying to be grateful, trying to see the world in a positive way. That's not always a negative place. It's not always a dark place. And that largely, whatever you strongly believe the world is, will come true. So I see a lot of hate comments. I get a lot of hate too. I see a lot of hateful, bitter people out there. And I never get mad. I always think, geez, what happened to them? What's going on in here that makes them so... I heard a thing about abuse once where someone described your life is, and your love and everything you have to give is like a bucket of pure, clean water, right? And you see these thirsty people around you, you're happy, you're a positive person, and you give them a cup of this pure, great water. Then when you're abused, and that can mean anything, someone's mean to you, someone's nasty, bad things happen to you in your life, or a bad situation can poison you too, but I'm just going to use the word abuse for simplicity's sake. When you're abused or something negative happens to you, it's like someone puts a drop of blood into that pure, clean water. Just a drop of disgusting, nasty, filthy blood. And what happens to a lot of people is that they take that little drop of blood and then they go around giving people of themselves when they're poisoned with that, just that little taint of stuff, and try to pass on, well, that's negative comments on the internet. They're lashing out with hate. They're rude to the people around them. They pass on that little bit of hate, let's say. The little bit of hate. Someone has poisoned the water hole. And what you have to do sometimes in your life, and this is what I had to do, is understand that that's there. Understand that these negative things happen. Somebody's poisoned the water hole. And you almost have to filter that stuff back out of yourself and go, you know what? It's me. Before it's anybody else's fault, before anybody else is the bad guy, it's me. I have to understand that even if I didn't do anything bad, this has affected me in a way. And I have to find a more positive way to look at the world before I'm capable of going out and doing anything positive for anybody else. And if you walk around the world just holding on to it, holding on to the bitterness, holding on to the fear, holding on to the negativity, then you're going to see every kind person smiling at you isn't going to make you happy. It's going to be like, who's that? What's that guy hiding? What are they faking? What kind of negativity have they got? You start to see the world as this dark, hostile, horrible place where everybody's out to get you, or anyone that's happy and successful is a smug jerk, and you're the one getting picked on. You start to develop, this almost like victim-like thing. And I was guilty of that too. Almost everybody I know is guilty of that. It's just human nature. But the good news is, it is possible to turn it around. It's going to be different for everybody. I recognize that. But I just want to take a little time out. This went way longer than I thought it was going to. Just to acknowledge the fact that, wow, it's been 3 crazy years. And all of how I sort of work through it is, a lot of it is online for all the world to see. It may be different for you. Maybe that stuff won't work for you. Maybe you'll need different ways of coping with whatever's going on with you. But I hope that you're all doing well. If you're not doing well, we have the Sometimes Mob. It's a Facebook group. You can go to sometimesmob.com. There's plenty of really happy, nice, positive people in there who often talk to each other and prop each other up when they're going through a hard time. And there's plenty of resources out there. But I just wanted to acknowledge all of you wonderful, kind, loving people. Whether it was a pat on the back, an attaboy, a smile, sending me $20 for Red Robin in the mail, hugging me, sending me pictures, which I keep on the fridge a lot of times, over here, writing me letters or sending me pictures or stuff like that. Thank you. Thank you so much for being a part of my quest for positivity. I love you all. Right now, I'm going to go boil some eggs and eat them. I don't know why you needed to know that, but I'm going to. I'm also going to put this mystery box, the box of mystery, the mystery box on eBay, because I had a bunch of random stuff. There's at least 2 random lemon pins in here. I'm going to stick that on eBay today. The mystery box, the mystery box. And just wait for the storm and the unusual Southern California sprinkling of rain, thunder, and lightning to pass over. And then tomorrow, I'll be headed out for adventures. Adventure, adventure, adventure. Thank you all for being part of this great adventure. I will see you all a little later. Goodbye.